What's up, everybody? It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show, your 24-hour day. I'm your host, Brendan Abbin, coming to you live on a Tuesday night, actually. A night of a lot of NBA action. Right now, actually, the Oklahoma City and Thunder and the Cleveland Cavaliers are actually going at it. The second game of where we're debuting the Cleveland Cavaliers' new look team. The first game came against the Los Angeles Lakers, the first game actually came against the Boston Celtics over the weekend, where they were able to get a really impressive win over the Boston Celtics, who were the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, and after the loss fell to number 2 behind Toronto, who's actually looked really impressive this season. But anyways, it's Tuesday night full of NBA action along with Winter Olympic action for anybody that wants to tune in. Right now is male snowboarding going on right now, and a lot of times sleep on the Winter Olympics, and this is honestly, I'm not saying as if I'm not excluded from that group of people too. I've always slacked on watching the Winter Olympics, and then this year I've actually made an effort to watch them, and it's actually been really, really impressive to watch. You see people breaking records like Chloe Kim, making U.S. history and everything like that in the Olympics. So it's really impressive to see all these different kind of athletes and all these different sports, because when you see it in this kind of context, everybody's normally used to watching the swimming, the track, the gymnastics, but when you see the snowboarding, the luge, the skiing, bobsledding, the whole nine, you realize a lot of what the most iconic Olympic moments were made in the Winter Olympics. Hence the movie Cool Runnings, or a lot of people who've seen that movie, that was based off a story from the Winter Olympics. So when you see these kind of things happen, and then if you don't watch the sport itself, you don't really get the full grasp of how difficult it was for a lot of these iconic moments to be pulled off in these different scenarios. So I recommend, for those who don't regularly watch the Winter Olympics, or who just think, oh man, these are just like the X Games or whatever, and I'm not gonna watch it because it's not my regular slate of sports that I would normally watch, I recommend that you watch it, because you'll still get a lot of excitement. And a lot of times these have a lot more acrobatics and high flying tricks that they do in the air in order to get higher scores on whatever their individual sport or performance they're doing. But as always, y'all know you should follow and subscribe to the KBR Sports podcast. We're going on Rabble TV, Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. That way you'll be email notified whenever the KBR Sports podcast is streaming live. And also don't forget that you should follow the KBR Sports Twitter page at KBR_sports, where the live link is show tops is tweeted prior to every single show. And then don't forget, you can also comment, like, and share the KBR Sports podcast. 1, to show your support for the show, and then 2, just to give your feedback, any comment or any topic that I may discuss during the show, or anything that you want to hear discussed on the show. So make sure you comment, like, and share the KBR Sports podcast so that you can always get your thoughts and opinions out onto the show. All right, y'all. So a lot of things to get into for tonight's show. A lot of things happened in the past week that I haven't been on. We have the trade. The trade deadline was last week. You had all the trades come in for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Lakers making trades. You have the Utah Jazz being a part of some trades, the New York Knicks, the Denver Nuggets. A lot of different teams were active at the trade deadline, but there's one particular trade I'm going to talk about, and one player out of that trade that I'm going to get into, and that's Mr. Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas, he was traded by Cleveland to the Lakers in a package that including Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, Isaiah, Channing Frye, and pretty much Isaiah and Channing Frye ended up now being on the Lakers, and Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. ended up going to Cleveland. Well, Isaiah played his first game with the Lakers, in which the Lakers did lose, but Isaiah Thomas, he kind of looked like the old IT, in which he put up 22 points, 6 assists, 1 rebound, had 1 steal. He did have 6 turnovers, but he was far more efficient from the floor that he's been in recent memory. He shot 58% from the floor and 50% from 3, as well as 100% from the free throw line, which means he didn't miss a free throw. But one thing that's kind of funny about this game that Isaiah played, they lost, and it was against the Mavericks. Mavericks, notably, have one of the worst records in the NBA, a team that's sinking and trying to get a higher draft pick in the upcoming draft. And the Mavericks they're playing rosters and lineups that nobody knows the name of the second guy on the roster list, or the third guy on the roster. Anybody that can name the Dallas Mavericks whole first starting lineup, aside from a Dallas Mavericks fan, deserves kudos. That shows you're really a true NBA savant, and you've mastered learning every single NBA player and team's roster, because I could only give you Dirk, Dennis Smith Jr., JJ Barea. That's about it. And Harrison Barnes. And literally, I just talked to somebody that was a Dallas Mavericks fan, and they gave me the whole starting lineup the other day. And this shows how unnoteworthy the rest of the players are on that roster, because I can't remember any other guy that hasn't been in the playoffs, hasn't made a marquee name, or wasn't selected high in the draft for the life of me. I can't remember any of those guys' names. But anyways, I digress. Pretty much, Isaiah had what seemed to be like an old Isaiah game, and a lot of people are talking about his comments after the game, in which he said, he made a comment saying that I got my powers back, just to sum it up in whole. He said, I got my powers back. And I'm seeing Isaiah is getting a lot of flack for his comments, because he's saying, I got my powers back. But one, you had 6 turnovers in the game, in which you're claiming to have your powers back. And at point guard, the one thing you don't want to do is turn the ball over. So what it's seeming like for a lot of people, that Isaiah's number one priority is for him to score the basketball. And he did do that. He scored the basketball efficiently, scoring the 22 points and shooting at 58%. That's really efficient. But when your team doesn't win, and most times when you hear it, when a guy's team loses despite his incredible performance, you normally hear a guy say, "Oh, I don't care about whatever points or triple double I had. We didn't win the game. Winning is the most important thing." But when you come to Isaiah Thomas, you hear him say, "Oh, well, I got my powers back." So in a lot of people's eyes, it seemed like Isaiah, his priority, I mean, every player wants to win in the NBA. It's not like anybody goes out not wanting to win a game. But it's seeming as by Isaiah's comments that he definitely values or prioritizes his individual output, his individual statistics. And it makes me really have to ask the question if he's a player the Lakers should look to keep beyond this season. Because Isaiah's contract will expire at the end of this season, and he will be a free agent. So it's gonna be one of those situations where he's been seeking that big money that he's been looking for, that big max contract. I mean, he's been talking about somebody wanting to go to a team that's gonna back up the Brinks truck for him in the whole nine, and he's felt like he's deserved that contract. And honestly, Isaiah has deserved that contract. He's earned it through what he did in Boston. I mean, it's sad that you see how it played out when he played through his sister's death in the playoffs for the Celtics, and then you see he ends up getting traded away. I'd make the case that Isaiah Thomas has had the toughest 8 months of any NBA player in the league possibly. I mean, you could possibly have Jay Crowder up there next to him, but Jay Crowder, because Jay Crowder has been traded as well, along with Isaiah. He's been traded because he got traded to the Cavs as well. Then he gets traded to Utah with Derrick Rose, and you can argue he's had just as bad an 8 months as Isaiah, but he hasn't been as much scrutinized by the media because, Jay Crowder's mom died from cancer. R.I.P. to her, and condolences go out to their family. But when it comes to those kind of sicknesses and stuff, you kind of see that more coming, as opposed to what happened with Isaiah Thomas's sister, where she was killed by a sudden car crash. So when you see how tough it's been for Isaiah and his family over the past 8 months, you can't help but sympathize for him. But then at the same time, you sit there and wonder, like, that at the end of the day, the NBA is a business. And when it comes to business decisions, paying a 5'8" point guard who's coming off of a hip surgery in which he hasn't been able to consistently look like he's played like his own self, his old MVP self, where he was top 5 in MVP voting. He does not look like that same guy. So when you're a franchise and you're looking at trying to evaluate whether or not you should pay him, you're like, you don't know what the case should be for you, because, and this is what I mean by should the Lakers keep him beyond this season. I'm not talking long term. I'm just talking as if, because this is what the Lakers' current situation is. By trading away Larry Nance Jr., Jordan Clarkson, and getting Isaiah and Channing Frye on essentially 1-year rentals, the Lakers have freed up a lot of cap space, in which allows them to sign 2 max players in the upcoming offseason and next year if need be. So the Lakers will have projected to be around $61 million, over $61 million in cap space, so they can sign 2 max contracts and 2 max players. Now the problem is that the only problem with this is with the Lakers, you can't tamper with players, even though the Lakers always get fined for tampering with Magic Johnson. Even he makes like a nice comment about a player, it's like you can't talk about anybody's player at all. But when it comes to this whole free agent game, when the Lakers made this trade, I heard some people saying that, hey, why are you going to make a trade to clear cap space and give away 2 young guys that can produce on your team just to create cap space for players that aren't on your team yet and you don't know you're going to get them? I heard some people saying that, but what people don't realize is, in order to get those players, you have to have the cap space available. It's not like those guys become free agents and then you're able to just magically make all that cap space appear. A lot of the times you have to be able to get the guys off your books ahead of time in order to be able to be in that position come the offseason to acquire the max free agents that you want. A lot of times when it comes to the moment, a lot of teams aren't going to make the trades with you, aren't going to help you because, one, they don't want to help you get the free agent, and 2, they're trying to get the free agent themselves. And a lot of times if you're making a trade with them to get somebody off your books, it's a player that they might not want, or it's not a situation. Like if the Lakers would have held on to Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr., and they would have tried to make the same trade with Cleveland later on, they wouldn't be able to because Isaiah Thomas would have been a free agent, so would Channing Frye, and there would have been no urgency for the Cleveland Cavaliers to try and trade either one of those guys because they already would come off the books. The reason why Cleveland made this mid-season trade because they wanted to change the look of their team. They wanted to change the feel of the locker room. They wanted to get younger, improve on defense. So they made this trade at this point in time so it benefited both Cleveland and the Lakers. And one thing I would say is that in the case of the Lakers, let's say that you only get one max free agent this summer, right? Then you would have a whole nother amount of cap space available to sign another max guy. But the only thing in that case is if you don't get the other max guy this summer, then you have all that cap space and you have to spend the cap space, or it gets allotted to the rest of your roster. And that's not something I don't think the Lakers want to do. So what I was saying is that maybe if Isaiah Thomas proves himself that he can be a viable piece, maybe coming off the bench, or eventually whatever Luke Walton decides to do with him, putting him in the starting lineup, if he makes it work, if he's a worthy scorer and can actually run the point efficiently, at least until Lonzo Ball comes back, then maybe playing at the same time of Lonzo, but most likely coming off the bench and filling that Jordan Clarkson role, maybe the Lakers can do justice by Isaiah and possibly giving him that big payday, if it's not just for more than 1 year. Just for 1 year. But this is my proposition, but the only thing is for me is that the reason why I as a team, I wouldn't want to do that is because, one, it's not ideal to give a guy one huge contract if he's not going to be a star or some max free agent like a LeBron James or Kevin Durant that you want to bring into your team. You know what they give you day in and day out. Whereas a guy like Isaiah, you don't know what the case is going to be if Isaiah's hip. You don't know what the situation is going on with him moving forward. I mean, obviously you get the rest of the season to see how he plays it, how he's going to play. But then going into next season, you don't want to give a huge contract to a guy like Isaiah where he's a defensive liability just because of his height. It's not like he doesn't try on defense, but Isaiah's just too short where essentially everybody puts him in pick and rolls and you can just shoot over him. If people say, oh, Isaiah's not, like the height thing doesn't matter, just imagine this. Have you ever played, if you're male or female, you ever played sports against a younger sibling that was far shorter than you, or a little kid, and they're trying to block your shot and you're like a whole foot taller? That is the case with Isaiah Thomas. When you're just multiple inches taller than somebody, it's pretty much like they're not there when you're shooting over them. So Isaiah Thomas, he's just a body on the court. He can't really affect anybody defensively. Now, and the thing is, if he's not giving you all the offensive production like he was in Boston, and I mean his numbers in Boston were really good. Like when you see what his last season in Boston, he averaged 28.9 points, averaged 5.9 assists, and he shot pretty much 91% from the free throw line, and shot 38% from three. Those are really good numbers, and those are MVP. That's why he was an MVP candidate. He was called King of the Fourth for a reason. Shot 46% from the field. But if you're not given that kind of offensive production, not the same as your MVP season now, obviously, because Lonzo Ball is going to get a lot of the starting minutes on offense, but you got to still mirror some of that production, at least into a bench capacity or to a lesser capacity, maintain the same level of efficiency, just not at the same clip, if that makes sense. Like, still score your solid 20 points at the same level of efficiency, still be that level of give that level of production, because you won't play the same minutes. So maybe your per 36 minute stats would look better, but make the most out of your minutes that you're given and be able to produce. If he can give that for the Lakers in this time period, then I think he'd be a worthy pickup for them, maybe just for that one season. Give him a 1-year deal. Even that wouldn't solve all what Isaiah wants, because he wants something long term, a long contract that he can sign. But if you give him a big contract, I'm pretty sure he'd want to sign that. Give him a big 1-year deal. He can sign that if he can prove to be of some value to you coming off the bench or whatever it may be. Give him one big year contract. Make sure it's a contract you want to give him, because if it becomes a thing where he's not of that value anymore, you pretty much are going to want to get him off your roster, but you can't. Nobody's going to want to trade for that contract unless they just want to get rid of that 1-year deal at the end of the season, like a bad team would maybe want to trade for him, and then at the end of the season that contract comes off their books and then they're free to pursue whoever they want or spend the money however they want to. But a lot of times teams will only make that trade if you're accompanying a draft pick with those kind of deals. So it'll be interesting to see how the future holds out for Isaiah Thomas. I mean, I feel bad for him. I mean, he's honestly had like the worst 8 months of any NBA player that I can just imagine. His sister gets traded. He's dragged through the media. You hear all this stuff going on about him, and I mean, some of this is self-induced on Isaiah's part. I'm not trying to twist the narrative, especially when he comes there and then you start going after guys like Kevin Love and talking about was he really sick and everything like that when he left the Thunder game earlier in the season. Those kind of things. I mean, Isaiah's played a role in some of this too. Even when he came to the Lakers, his agent texted Rachel Nichols or something of the matter and said that he wasn't planning on coming off the bench. You don't have a say on that if you're going to a new team. What Isaiah's goal should be at this point is to just go to whatever team will take him, whatever team will pay him, and show, because right now he's showcasing himself for all the other teams in the NBA. He needs to showcase that, hey, he's not a problem in the locker room. He's willing to do whatever it takes to help his team win, and he's trying to be productive while doing it. But if he just shows it's all about Isaiah, he's focusing on Isaiah, he's going to make him more of a commodity for people, and it's going to be less desirable. You don't want that. So I mean, I'm hoping the whole Isaiah thing works out for him, man, because I feel bad for him. I mean, he's underpaid for sure. He is definitely underpaid. I mean, a lot of people will see NBA contracts are like underpaid, but Isaiah Thomas is underpaid for the production that he can give you and the value that he gives you in terms of scoring. He is underpaid. But you look at some of the other guys in the league that are making max dollars. Steph Curry makes over 34 mil. LeBron makes over 33 mil. Paul Millsap is the third highest paid at 31. Gordon Hayward at 29, over 29 and 700,000. Then Blake Griffin at 29,500,000. And then Kyle Lowry, Russell Westbrook, Mike Conley, James Harden, DeMar DeRozan, Al Horford, Carmelo Anthony, Damian Lillard. I haven't even gotten to Kevin Durant yet. And Isaiah Thomas wants to be paid in that ilk of those kind of guys. And I mean, essentially, it's always when it comes to these contracts, it's always about who's up next, like who's big paydays up next. It's sort of like the NFL with the quarterback. You'll get paid based on what the timing and what caliber of player you are. Isaiah's not the caliber of player that Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, or some of these other guys are. But he is someone that can give you a lot of value and can produce at a high level in the NBA. So hopefully Isaiah gets that contract. It's not the max, the big Brinks truck that he was looking for, but right now he makes about $9 million on this season. He's making $9 million on this season, just a little over that, and you hope he can just get something more for the services he's provided and the value he's shown so far in the NBA. All right, y'all. When I come back from my break, I'm gonna talk about LeVar Ball, and if he's finally crossed the line with the Lakers, then it's about time they actually make him have to close his mouth. Stay tuned to find out. It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show, your 24-hour day.